Back to UPress Play, a sports show produced by FAU Student Media. I'm Megan, and with me is Maddox and Morgan, and we are live streaming on OwlTV's YouTube, as well as the UPress Sports Instagram. It's been a crazy first week back from spring break. I can't speak for both of you, but I know I've had an absolutely crazy schedule, and it's just, that week break was really nice.
Yeah.
We haven't really had too much going on this week within like the sports world, but how's like your classes been going and kind of getting used to actually having to do schoolwork again?
I mean, my classes so far are doing good right now. I had a couple of only like 2 midterms before spring break. Now I'm back. Got to do an assignment. I got to do a story for one of my journalism classes.
Okay.
That's doing like 2 weeks. So I have to like get going on. But other than that, classes are doing good. I'm excited for the remainder of the sports schedule for the rest of this semester.
Yeah. For me, it's pretty simple. I got 2 huge assignments this week, one due Friday, one due tomorrow at 11. So as soon as this show's over, I'm probably just going to be doing that.
Yeah. No, I know at least for the UP, we're starting our second print now for this semester. And the deadlines, we kind of realized, oh wow, the deadline for the story is basically in like a week and a half. So I will be focusing on that for the next couple of weeks.
All right, what's the, give us an inside scoop of like what like the theme is?
I don't know if I'm allowed to reveal that yet, but if you guys missed it, we did release our first print of the semester right after spring break, and it's for Women's Month. So there's a lot of really great articles in there that are focused around kind of empowering women throughout FAU, such as like business owners, like the VI, the coffee bar. Sophia, the editor-in-chief, she did a really interesting story about the wage gap between Latinos and Americans. And then I actually had a feature article about myself for being the first female sports editor at the UP, so that was really exciting. And
applaud for that. Yeah, that's great.
I'm just happy to have.
It's the first one.
Yeah, I think it's just because, I mean, when I was doing my research for the article, like once Title IX passed back in 1972, that was, women weren't even able to be like broadcasters until after that passed. So I think that a lot of the gender gap within this field really just stems from the fact that we haven't had the ability to be as prominent, and men have like historically just been able to work in the field. But for women, it's kind of a newer thing that we're being able to. So yeah, I'm really honored about that. But we can go ahead and get into our FAU housekeeping. So FAU men's basketball team, they're 18-15 and 10-8 in the AAC. Their regular season is officially over. They won their first game of the American Athletic Conference tournament to Charlotte, 64-59. I thought it was pretty cool that they got to play Charlotte again, especially just because of Rosado, and it was their 3rd time this season matching up against them. Morgan, you had covered that game. What do you feel like kind of helped them to push for the 3rd win this season? Because I know it's kind of difficult for teams to get 3 wins in a season against the same team.
Well, I think it's one word, one man, Vocatitis.
Yeah.
He went off that game. It really felt like, especially early on, especially that stretch where he like scored, I don't know if it was like 3 times in a row or something like that. He got like an offensive like they couldn't handle his size, like in the beginning. Like I remember he getting an offensive rebound, then putting it back up. His footwork was really nice in the paint, making some guy like he baited a guy and he jumped up for the shot and then he just did a little layup because he went past him. Vocatitis had a really big game. He only missed 1 shot, 7 of 8. Of course, you also have like Baba Miller and Caleb Glenn, who went, who are probably one of our more consistent players in the team, playing well as well. It was a little worrying to see Charlotte stay close with us the entire game, but Vocatitis really helped with that, and same with Bobby Miller. I think the size, I think, really helped. Bobby Miller and Bokatitis both had a really good day that game.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then after that game, so that pushed them to the quarterfinals, where FAU fell to Tulane 83-76. I covered that one, and same thing, Bokatitis, he did incredible. He led the team with 21 points and 12 rebounds. And surprisingly enough, the second leading scorer of that night was actually Devin Vanderpool with 12 points. So that was one thing in the press conference that Coach Jacobs really emphasized. He's like, these two freshmen, we're gonna try to build them up in the next couple of seasons. And with Bokatitis especially, he was someone that was brought in, and funnily enough, he kind of reminds me of Vlad almost, but like a different European style of Vlad, just because of the height and kind of their figure and their playing ability. And he, at the beginning of the season, I feel like kind of struggled just because he was so used to the European style of basketball and had to get used to college. And he, unfortunately, in their game against Tulane, he fouled out in the last 3 minutes, which I really think is something that kind of led to their downfall in that game, just because he was leading with he was such an important player for them during that matchup. And when he got subbed out was when Tulane was just able to keep pounding away, and unfortunately it ended their regular season and their hopes for March Madness. And yeah, they weren't able to come back, especially because Tulane was keeping FAU away from the 3-point shot opportunity, which is something that Jacobs and the team really has emphasized and had a strength of this whole season. And it's disappointing. Yeah. But we were talking about it last show, and FAU actually did secure an NIT tournament bid. So they're going to be playing in the Dayton Regional, and they'll be hosting a home game against Dayton this Wednesday at 7 p.m. So I think that we all can kind of speak that it shows that they still had a successful season, even with their falling. But Maddox, were you able to catch either of the games and kind of had any takeaways and what you feel like went wrong?
Yes, I saw both games. The first one against Charlotte, and I thought it was too close, much closer than I thought it would be. But I thought, well, that's granted. I mean, when you're a low seed like Charlotte, you want to get a first win, have that momentum riding on you, and you want to try and push through. I mean, as a postseason, even though everyone is a different seeds, everyone's basically starts at 0. So you have to prove your worth. And Charlotte did that, and FAU struggled a lot, especially behind the free throw line, 53.3% from the free throw line. They could not make shots, and I was like, if FAU loses, it's going to be all about that, them not performing well on the charity line. And then for Tulane, as you said, Megan, the Tulane looked great defensively, kept FAU to a distance. A lot of times throughout the game, it got very close. I don't recall. I think FAU had 1 or 2 leads, but Tulane basically ran through owned that entire game. And in the very end, when it was very close, but within a couple of points, when those crucial minutes, Tulane just ran away with it and won by 7. And looking at how FAU 27.3% from the 3, 36.2% from the field. Meanwhile, FAU's defense struggled because Tulane had 48.1% from the field and 46.2% from the 3-point line. So they had struggled against Tulane defensively, and I got Tulane to win that game. So FAU has to work well on that defensively, leading into that Dayton series, because Dayton, they are 22-10 this season, while FAU is 18-15. So having a team that's a couple of games ahead of you, and you're hosting the number 1 seed in the NIT, you have to prove your worth. And it's the first time there's a postseason game at Eleanor R. Baldwin Arena, and the 5 out of 7 seasons, 5 out of 7 times FAU is now in a postseason in the last 7 seasons.
Yeah, and that's a remarkable statistic. I mean, yes, if you're just an average fan and kind of don't really understand, it's disappointing that they didn't make it into March Madness, especially having the appearance but the last 2 seasons. But the fact that there's a brand new coach and then 11 new players, and they were able to secure their first NIT like tournament hosting here, that's a really big deal. And yeah, in the Tulane game, I mean, it started out, both of them were going back and forth, and then FAU had a lead, and then Tulane took the lead like heading into the halftime, and FAU was able to take back the lead with like 6:30 left in the game, but then Tulane they started making their shots, and then FAU just could not. I think that one thing that I did notice, I felt like when it kind of came down to the crunch time and it was the last like 2.5 minutes, it felt like they just forgot how to work as a unit. Like I wasn't seeing the passing that we had been seeing at the beginning of the game. That's another thing that Jacobs did say in the press conference, and he was like, look, I know that these guys want to make the big plays and to be that playmaker within the last 2 minutes of the game, especially when they're in like a 2-point deficit. But he said that he think that the bigger play was probably to pass the basketball, which is really important. And that's what we saw with the team that did go to the Final Four, is that they were very selfless players. And I feel like something that this current team has to recognize is that you can't be a selfish player, and they have to go in with that mentality against Dayton, I feel like, in order to have any type of success.
Yeah, I think also like the tenacity as well. I mean, I remember reading a comment on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter X, or whatever you want to call it, and someone was pointing out how like Devin Vanderpool coming off the bench, as you said, Megan, he was second on the team in scoring 12 points, 5 rebounds. Some people were saying how he showed more tenacity and showed more heart in that game, and him coming off the bench and being the second leading scorer also kind of proves that as well. Like with FAU, the beauty of the team is you don't know who's going to be the top scorer. It also can be like a downfall as well. I feel like later on in this season, especially now in postseason, everyone is used to having the ball. Then now they're kind of like falling into a little bit of that selfish thing, like, hey, pass me the ball, I will try to score. Because you have like guys like Baba Miller, 1 for 6 from the field, 0 for 3 from 3-point line. Caleb Glenn, 2 for 8 from the field, 2 and 4 from behind the arc. Like you have guys who are great scorers, but especially in times like this where it's not going well for them, they're not really trying to pass the ball. The team had overall 16 assists versus Tulane's 18. Sure, a little bit kind of close to there, but like 16 assists. Like trying to pass the ball more, try and work well under the post, under the basket, like trying to find ways to win. And they kind of struggle a little bit with that. I think also just because that postseason, just because they're now in the postseason.
I saw a couple of times throughout the last couple of minutes, it was like 76-74, 74-72. And, when we had the ball, and this is after Vocatitis was out, obviously, and I think that did play a huge part in why our offense couldn't run. But they were kind of like spaced out, all 5 of them, like 5 out, like all on the perimeter. And it kind of really felt like they just couldn't get past Tulane. Like there was a couple of times where they tried to penetrate, and then they just didn't get past them. And that would lead to either of them, of course, chucking up a 3-point shot or passing it to another person on the perimeter, and then the same result happened. Yeah. So it really felt like without Vocatitis, or maybe just in general, like Tulane just was able to just not allow them to penetrate. And I think that, of course, obviously, the best shot in basketball is still right under the basket or right, on the basket. And not being able not to penetrate, forcing guys to move, defenders to move towards that basket, towards you, and then, that player passing out to an open shot or leading to another open shot. Like that's how, they weren't able to do that, and that's like just simple simple basketball.
Yeah,
that Tulane wasn't able to prevent them from.
Yeah, we saw like Tulane do that. Where again, looking at the box score, I mean FAU 36.2% from the field, and from the 3-point line 27.3%. And they had 33 attempts from behind the arc. So they've been forcing FAU not from trying to get away to the perimeter and trying to get them to the perimeter and stay away from the basket, and be in the post and whatnot. So they're trying to force them to shoot threes. Say, there's always that mindset like if I have a hot hand, you're going great, but if you keep missing shots, it goes in your head, and every single shot you take, you're going to miss. Yeah. And so they kind of had that at their disposal for Tulane, push them defensively, to pushing FAU to shoot behind the arc where they're not shooting that well.
And throughout the year, we've seen FAU have games where they're like, oh, they're terrible from 3. And then they had stretches when they were really great from 3. So it's really,
It kind of reminds me of the Northwestern game last season with FAU lost against Northwestern. I remember seeing that game, and I'm thinking, why do you keep trying to shoot 3-pointers Because if you're not going to make it, try go for like a dunk, try to go for a mid-range jumper, but don't try to go for a three. Try to work defensively to stab Northwestern, and then try to go in transition, get an easy basket. You don't have to just shoot threes every single time.
Yeah, that game was so frustrating to
Yeah.
watch, just because they were playing like a completely different style of basketball than we had seen like the whole season, and then of course that led to losing in the first round of March Madness last year. But yeah, I think going forward in this game against Dayton, I mean, there's definitely a lot of stuff that was learned from that loss to Tulane, and I think that this is a great opportunity to kind of learn from just everything that they have shown with their strengths this season compared to their weaknesses, and use that as an opportunity, because now it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, might as well just completely ball out.
Yeah, I think also like, it's just great for them being in the NIT. I believe they're like their first appearance in the NIT. And for for fans who really don't know much about college basketball, like the NITs was like March Madness, then like the NIT, then a couple other like smaller tournaments. But the NIT is like the next level, level you want to be at postseason. You can't make it to March Madness, because you got teams like SMU, Oklahoma State, who FAU defeated earlier, St. Louis with Robbie Avila, a big standout last season, North Texas, UAB, Wichita State from the American Athletic Conference, Georgia Tech, like St. Joseph's had a good year. Like you have these programs that are very big, known, prominent programs. Schools like Furman, who've been in the March Madness a couple of years ago. So these are teams that were kind of runner-ups in their programs, but they're still some of the best of the best. So I also felt like, even if you're not going to make it to March Madness, like don't have that like ego, be like, oh, we're so much better than any other like postseason bracket, like the CBI. Like I know Jake has said, like if the CBI was our only option, we're not going to take it. But now it's like the NIT. It's like at least end the season on like a high note. Try to get a championship. Try at least make a good run in the postseason. And also, you're hosting a postseason game Wednesday. There's also to bring some upside as well.
Yeah. Do we have any predictions for like how we think that NIT tournament is going to play out?
Like I haven't done much scouting on Dayton because I'm gonna be calling that game for the radio. But I mean, as you say on here on the show sheet, they're third in the Atlantic 10 conference, and they're a couple games above FAU. In the record, Dayton is 22-10. FAU is 18-15. So I think that might be a little bit of a problem. But they got, looking at their scores, I mean, their star player Nate Santos averaging points, averaging about
14.1.
Yeah, 14.4 points. They have three guys who are averaging double digits per game. FAU has a lot of great guys offensively. I feel like they have to figure out what their identity defensively. But I feel like if FAU fans show out in the at the arena this Wednesday and make it difficult for Dayton, because again, you're hosting a postseason game for the first time ever, so that's going to probably bring some upside. You're going to bring some fans. Having the fans be a huge factor to help FAU win, but as long as FAU works well defensively and shoots the ball well and keeps those guys like Santos and Anosh Cheeks, Jabon Bennett, Malachi Smith, the top four scorers for Dayton, keeps them at a distance, then FAU could start making a pretty good run.
Yeah.
I will say, we're looking at some of Dayton's just schedule and statistics. They have some pretty, I know.
That's what I was about to say, the same exact thing.
They have some pretty impressive losses and wins. So they beat UConn once, who is in March Madness, and they also beat Marquette, who's also in March Madness.
Yeah.
They had a 2-point loss against North Carolina, a 5-point loss against Iowa State, 7-point loss against Cincinnati, and a 19th ranked Cincinnati at that time. Wins against Northwestern. Yeah, they have a lot of first off,
they
good
did
wins.
really well in their
Yeah.
non-conference.
They did really well, even if they lost most of those games. And then they also were able to beat teams like VCU, who is going to March Madness, and they won the Atlantic 10 conference championship. Like Dayton's a good team. However, this doesn't mean that FAU can't beat them. But Dayton is going to be a good team, and you can't play like you did against Tulane.
No. But I don't know. We'll have to see. Wednesday will be an exciting night. But talking about our former team from last year, who did make it to March Madness, there is a couple of players who this season are going to be back in the tournament. So first up, I'll just go. So Nick Boyd, who transferred to San Diego State, which I think is the most what the heck? Like,
like he
how do you transfer to the team that literally made the layup over you in the Final Four?
He was the one who was guarding Lamont Butler, who got that game-winning jumper in the Final Four. And then he was also the one who I think got the winning layup that secured the win over Memphis at last second.
Yeah.
So he was both the one who helped FAU get there, but also the one who was unfortunate in that predicament in that position where he was covering the guy who had the game-winning shot.
But he has done incredible with his decision to transfer. San Diego State is entering March Madness with number 11 seed, and they'll be playing in the South region in the first four against North Carolina. And on the season, Nick Boyd actually led the team with 13.4 points per game, and he led in rebounds as well with 4. So I think we can kind of say that even though fans might be a little salty with him for transferring to San Diego State, it was a good choice for him.
Yeah.
And I'll just go through and kind of list off all the players, and then we can kind of have our little discussion about it. So Dusty May, and he was the former head coach and went to Michigan and brought along with him Vlad Golden. They just won the Big Ten tournament, and they'll be playing in March Madness with number 5 seed in the South region, first round against San Diego. And Vlad led the team with 16.7 points per game. Elijah Martin, he went to Florida, and they're actually a number 1 seed in March Madness, and they're going to be playing in the West region against Norfolk State.
Norfolk.
Yeah, Norfolk. And he didn't lead the team, but he still had great statistics. He averaged 14.5 points per game and 4.6 rebounds. And John L. Davis, he was FAU's leading scorer, and he is going to be playing March Madness as the 10th seed against Kansas Jayhawks, and he produced 11.2 points per game and 1.5 steals. So all 4 of these players really had remarkable seasons with their new respective schools. Besides,
Maybe
I
John
know,
L.
yeah, you kind of tilted
Maybe.
your head. I was going to say John L., not as quite, but I know we've kind of talked about this a little bit, and I think a lot of people can kind of recognize it was probably the hardest for him to transfer out of here because he was FAU's kind of like go-to guy. You knew that he would be making a shot, and like he was just, I know as a spectator, I trusted him the most when the ball was in his hands. I mean, I remember covering their game against North Texas last season where he had that game winner 3-point shot, and I had a lot of confidence when he was the one with a couple of seconds to go. But I feel like some of these other players, while they're consistent, they weren't as trusted. So that's probably why he struggled a bit going from that top guy to having to go down a little bit.
But I think also like for Arkansas, like John Calipari, when he went to Arkansas, there was like only like one person on that team that like stayed. So he had to rebuild an entire program basically, kind of similar with Jacobs, but he had to build like an entire program. And most of those guys are from like SEC Power 4 schools. You have someone like John L, just in great numbers at a mid-major, but again, granted, mid-major, then trying to share minutes, trying to score points in SEC play, going against, competing against fellow teammates who are SEC caliber players. So that was a little bit of a struggle. I mean, granted, Elijah Martin, him playing 14.5 points per game, and also him in the SEC, kind of like a different story as well. But like for John L, like I just felt like for him being that go-to guy and having that role of like, okay, now like you're not gonna be the guy, you're gonna be like the second, you're gonna be like a third or fourth or maybe even like 5th guy on our team. I don't know if that'd be like transition well for him in a way, but I think also like he had like a wrist injury like earlier in the season, so that also kind of put him aside for a little bit in the season and kind of like affected his playing style a little bit. But I mean, him still having 11.2 points per game, still producing good numbers, I mean averaging double digits in a very tough conference.
Yeah, I mean he is Arizona's 3rd leading scorer, which that's still really great. I mean, yeah, compared to looking at his statistics from his last 2 seasons at FAU, the year that they went to the Final Four, he averaged 13.8 points per game, and then last season he averaged 18.2. So yeah, he had the decline, but I mean, still being the third leading scorer on like this new team, I think that's pretty impressive.
I will say with Florida, they're a little bit of a different team because they're not one of those teams in the SEC that kind of like guts their entire roster, then like has a new one coming in next year. They're kind of one of those teams that like, especially the last 2 years with their current head coach. So they're one of those teams that kind of like, oh, we've had the same guys for like 2 to 3 years, and like we're adding, some top recruits, but now we're adding a top transfer in Elijah.
And that Florida team is very, very deep as well. I got like Walter Clayton. I know they have like one freshman that hasn't played yet, but he's like 7'9". So you got guys that are like.
Wow. What?
Yeah, they got 7'9". Oliver Reveau, or I think Reveau is his last name.
Are you serious?
Yeah, but like, so Florida is a very like deep team. They have a lot of great scorers. So even for like Elijah, I saw just a couple of Florida games this past season, but looking at how he played, like he put up great numbers. Not being like like a sideline piece, but also being one of those like playmakers for Florida.
Wow, 7'9". That's crazy.
Yeah. That is really crazy.
Yeah, you were right. Oliver Rowe.
Yeah, but I think also like I'm really impressed by how Dusty May and Vlad Golden are at Michigan, because I saw a couple of Michigan games and seeing how Vlad's playing. He was really great under the post, especially him sharing minutes with Danny Wolf, also a center around the same height as him, sharing minutes with him and Will Shedder. About like 3 centers on that team are both playing great. It's just good to see for Vlad Golden. I mean, of course, as a fan, you want to see those players at your program to continue to succeed, but also you kind of know in the back of your mind, like if they want to go pro, FAU and mid-major really isn't the best option, unfortunately. So try and go to these bigger schools. Like Dusty May first season and took a Michigan team that I think was like 13 and 14 seed last season to a
Big Ten championship.
Yeah, to the championship. I think they were like a 3 or 4 seed in the Big Ten.
And then they ended up winning it out.
Yeah, they're winning that tournament. So seeing how they are succeeding as well at Michigan is also very great to see, and great to see how all these other players are succeeding in their respective programs, playing these, having more minutes, having more of a bigger impact than probably what they've had at FAU. And I remember seeing someone tweet this earlier this morning, how they're like, okay, so seeing all these players and all their stats, yeah, FAU could have 100% made a third straight season if Dusty May, Vlad Golden, if Martin, Davis, Boy, they all stayed, they could have 100% made it back.
Well, how they're playing now, they might even been better than their, like the, you know what I'm saying? They might have been better.
But who knows though? They've gotten to develop with these different programs. So it's really just hard to say like if we would have seen this same amount of development with them for this season if they had stayed at FAU. And that's kind of why, I mean, looking at how all 4 of them did this season, I think we can kind of all say that these 4 were like the 4 players out of the team that kind of had the NBA like prospects, and I think for their chances of going to the NBA, making the decision to transfer was very important. Because they showed that they can succeed at these higher level schools, and also that they can succeed playing with other people. Because a lot of people kind of could have made the argument that the only reason that team did go to the Final Four was because they played together well. It was because they weren't selfish. They clearly had a really good bond just amongst all of them. So I think that helped propel them to success. But it could also, it's hard to kind of translate that same amount of success when you're getting used to a new team. And they still were able to do that. And I mean, it's great for Dusty May as well. I mean, we're talking about the players, but him from a coaching standpoint, like this change was huge for him. You know, going from a mid-major school to a team like Michigan, who's in the Big Ten, and this is a conference that is historically, like, they're well known for their basketball programs. And now he's able to lead this higher level university to having a better season than last year. And it's, I don't know if we've mentioned this, but Vlad actually got engaged too.
Oh yeah. I saw a video from the Big Ten Network on YouTube of their video of like him getting the chance also to meet his parents after he engaged his girlfriend, meeting his parents for the first time in like 5 years for senior day too. So seeing that also, like, it was really great to see. No,
that was great to see, especially because she actually was a FAU volleyball player. So I think, I don't know all the details of their story, but I think that's pretty cool. And it was kind of funny though, because he had proposed after they lost to Michigan State. But I guess like you can't help.
I got a question for you. So kind of going a little bit off topic, but for like the Michigan State game, there's a tradition where I'm guessing there's a tradition where the seniors for Michigan State during like the final three free throws, the team kisses the middle of the court and then like head off. And so some Michigan players were standing in the middle of the court, and one of the guys from Michigan State wasn't having it and almost started a fight.
Yeah.
And so people were blaming Dusty, maybe like, oh, like he already knew about this tradition. So did the Michigan players. Don't lie, you all knew about this tradition. Is there actually a tradition for that? Because I feel like if there's like a tradition like that, people will like know about it more like on social media or something. But like that was like the first time anyone really heard about it. And people were like in the comments are saying like that's a tradition they have.
It's not necessarily like a tradition. It's just something that people have kind of like done, but it's not like a sanctioned like, oh, this is a tradition and it has to be done every year. I think it's kind of more up to the players. But that's just people trying to create drama for no reason. I mean, that's all I really can say about that.
I think before we move on to the next topic, I will say that they probably are. They're all graduates, so they definitely rose their chances of going to the NBA. And
that's like the reason why they went there.
Yeah, for sure, exactly. And I think that they all increase their chances. And I think that we should see at least a couple of them make NBA roster.
I can definitely see Vlad with his
Vlad and Elijah Martin.
Yeah, Vlad and Elijah Martin, 100%. John Nell, I think could be definitely a G League player.
To see if he
to like further develop, but could possibly like later on get some call-ups, maybe get some time like coming off the bench during like.
I also think it'll March Madness. If one of them goes on a huge run during March Madness, that'll also boost their stock.
Yeah,
for sure.
Or on the other hand, what if they don't do it?
Yeah,
I don't know how much that would impact, like for Vlad and for Elijah's sake, but I think that
like Nick Boyd.
I was going to say a lot of people have predicting Florida's making a pretty good run during the tournament. So
I mean,
and Elijah Martin's also like a pretty electrifying dunker.
Yeah.
So like
I remember seeing the failed dunk attempt against Fairleigh Dickinson.
Yeah.
And fans were just cooking him. And then when they came back before their before their Final Four game, when they came back to like practice a little bit more, and the media spoke to them, I remember people were asking Elijah, hey, like, what were your thoughts on this? People like you just weren't having that on social media about you trying to do this dunk against like March Madness' like poster child team Fairleigh Dickinson. He was like, I didn't pay attention to much like social media because I like blocked out the noise, but like he definitely got like people were hating him for it. But I was like, I remember fans were saying like, I was mad at the dunk. He didn't land the dunk. I feel like no one really would have cared if he made it.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was also a problem too. People were like, oh, you're like showboating. Well, if he made the dunk, maybe not, because he missed it. They're like, oh, like took a chance on this. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that like you said, I think out of the four, that Vlad and Elijah Martin have like the highest chances. I don't think that either of them are gonna go like first round though.
No.
Like probably like mid-second round or so.
They're already older, like NBA draft typically.
Exactly. Typically it's a lot younger players like after their first year of college. But that it'd be cool. I mean, I know they didn't end up graduating from here, but two players who attended FAU for like 3 seasons, it'd be neat to see them make it there. But we can go ahead and get into our live read. So if you are a club or student organization wanting to promote an event you're hosting or just want to promote yourselves, DM UPress Sports on Instagram with a 3 to 4 sentence paragraph and we'll read it live on air. Now, I want to shout out Morgan for actually catching this because I had missed it. But FAU hockey team is on February 27th, it was announced that their Division II team is now moving up to D1. And with that, their D3 team is also moving up to D2. So in the first year of them having a D3 team, that is extremely impressive that within the first season, they already are going to be moving up. And I did get a little bit of insight kind of onto the change from Kimmy, who's the social media manager for the hockey team. She basically said that the reason for the change is just because of how well they did throughout their season for both teams, and not even just their record, but in the style that they were beating these teams. Like they were having like 8-point differential games, which it was just clear that the ability or the playing ability that FAU has compared to the other schools' Division II and Division III teams just wasn't comparable. So what do we kind of feel like this change like means for the program?
Well, yeah, it's big. This program. I mean, how long ago did they even start? I only heard about the program like halfway through the like my freshman year. And they were just a club school, and then boom, they go in 2 seasons. They're and I might be wrong, but they go from club to D1, which is really impressive. And I don't know how like any of the NHL things work, but like I know that they do have a college system, and that like of course going D1, there's a better chance for some of these hockey players to eventually become maybe NHL players.
I think also just like having some of these guys now like play on like a D1 team, kind of put more of a spotlight on how great these players are, and possibly give them an opportunity to, I guess, probably get an opportunity to go to the NHL or get drafted to some other pro hockey team affiliates. Because I know a couple of them, they like one of the goalies, Rocco Bruno. I think just came back from like a national team in Argentina appearance or something. So like they have some guys who are already playing like nationally for their countries, and now like going to D1, kind of producing more of a spotlight for them. And again, we don't know much of the process. I don't know much about the process of like a club sport becoming like an intercollegiate sport. No, I think after like a while, maybe something comes up. I think that could be probably their next, it could be in their future. I don't think for right now, because now we're just moving up quickly. Like 2 years ago, I think they announced they went from D3 to like a D2 program. Now they're doing a club, now they're adding a D3 team as well. So the the club is growing strong.
Yeah.
I just feel like I don't think right now in the future it is becoming actual like clubs, not becoming an actual like college sport. I think like further down the line, like 10 or so years, that could possibly be, depending on how well they play.
According to Google, a club sport can become intercollegiate when the university like officially recognizes the club sport as a varsity team, and that's if they give them the official status, give them funding for the coaches, and then funding for facilities, which right now the university is not giving this club team any funding, any recognition. So everything is just strictly based on the club. Like it's completely separate from anything else going on with the school. It's basically like if someone started their own like pottery club and how they would have to fund that club themselves. That's two completely different. I don't know why I went to art from sports, but it's even different than the intramural sports because those receive funding from the school, I believe, because they pay for like the referees and different things like that. But with the hockey team, they have to find all of their own refs. They have to find their own practice facilities and rent those out and pay for those, pay for all of their games, pay for hosting, pay for traveling. So I think that after this year and the fact that now it's being brought up to Division I, I think this is really going to help the club's argument to push for funding from the school, whether that's, I don't think that they're going to get complete funding yet, but I feel like next season, like FAU should consider giving them maybe like a stipend of like, okay, here's $3,000 or something like that. And I think that's something that we really could start to maybe. I mean,
also like just in talking about, like I think also like seeing around campus, like I think there's like some like I think I saw some like administrative like people I know like the I think like VP for student affairs. I saw him wearing like a hockey club jersey. Like people around campus are wearing the hockey club jerseys. So the student body are recognizing them as like an actual like sport. So it'll be interesting to see like if like Brian White, the athletic director for FAU, if he starts like kind of paying attention to it and start, maybe eventually starts recognizing them as well. Because hockey is becoming very big in Florida, which again is very ironic to hear about. But like right now, like everyone's loving what's happening with the Florida Panthers and NHL, and now like FAU hockey, they're doing really well now. They're moving up from Division III to Division II, now from Division II also up to Division I.
Yeah, I mean hockey is a really entertaining sport. Like I feel like out of my like kind of favorite sports, like football and basketball, and then honestly hockey is a third, just because it's so fast. I really like fast-paced games, and even though people don't like scoring doesn't happen as much, it's more so like soccer where it's like kind of the average is between like 1 to like 3 per game. It's impressive too. I mean, the fact that they have to learn how to skate and then maintain the puck, which is like this big, and then I don't know, I feel like I would like fall over.
I think another big thing about this is that, like, honestly, just hockey in Florida has like popularity has risen over the last few years because Tampa Bay Lightning was really good, and then now the Florida Panthers just won their Stanley Cup. So just in general, I know in the Southwest Florida region, because I was born and raised there, they're very, very big on Everblades hockey.
Oh, they're fun. I've seen them play the Solar Bears a couple of times.
Yes. So Florida as a whole is just becoming much more of a hockey state in the last few years. So yeah, I think some of that might have also influenced like the popularity that FAU hockey's getting.
Plus, I also heard that like Wayne Gretzky is like making like a like facility to like train like young hockey players as well, like in like the West Palm area as well.
Really, that's awesome.
That's actually really great. I think half of it just has to deal with I think a lot of the hockey popularity, not even just because the teams have had success, but we're having so many people from up north move down to Florida.
That's true.
So I feel like, they're grown up, like, those are the states where it would make sense for hockey to be super popular just because they actually have snow and Florida's like beaches. But since they're bringing down kind of their, like, not wisdom, but we'll go with wisdom. I can't think of another word right now. Yeah, their influence is helping to kind of boom that, and especially in the South Florida area, I mean, so many people, even just at FAU, the amount of people that are like, oh yeah, I'm from New Jersey, or I'm from New York, I'm like, okay, it's strange that so many people from these northern states come down here, but I guess that's because it's the Sunshine State. So we'll have to see what they end up doing in the next year, 2 or so, but I can only hope that they start to get some funding because, like Maddox said, it's clearly popular with the students now, especially since Boca Ice is one of their playing facilities, which is only like an 8-minute drive. But yeah, and then so FAU softball team, they've won their last 3 games since the last time we met. They're 27-4 and they're 6-0 in the AAC. So they're really starting out their conference play hot. And this Friday they're going to be hosting Charlotte. Last year when FAU and Charlotte played, the Owls won. 1 second, my computer. Yeah, they won last season as well. So they're going to be having their 3-game series starting this Friday through Sunday. And their first game on Friday, it's actually designated as Kids Night. So last year when they had played, FAU won 5-3. What do we kind of expect for this series?
I mean, I guess like great softball. FAU softball team, I've covered a couple of games, 1 game for the UPress. I was covering the majority of the Joe and Joyce Classic as well. And they have a lot of great scorers on the team, like players like Kylie Chanel, Bella Ferran, Chloe Yates, like players like that, and pitchers, Jalen Martinez and Gabby Sacco. Like they have great players and a great coach as well in Jordan Clark, where she has like already got like over 100 wins now, and she's like in her 3rd season, and bringing the program to a regular season title last season, and now being 27-3, number 24 in the nation, winning 9 straight, sweeping the first 2 games in her conference. Also kind of like, it was really impressive to see how the program is built, and I feel like seeing how well they've been playing the past couple of games, I do feel like they could possibly like just also get another sweep and sweep Charlotte.
Yeah, Charlotte's like kind of mid of the pack right now, 14-15, softball wise, and FAU is one of the best. So I don't, for score predictions, I think that FAU, on paper they should sweep, and they probably will.
Yeah, I feel like again another sweep. I'm thinking probably like FAU. Their most recent games, they haven't been scoring as much as they did in their non-conference games. So far with like conference play, it's been like 5-1, 4-1, actually 2 4-1s. So I'm thinking that they'll probably have like maybe 6, 5, and then like 4 for how many runs they end up coming away with. But it's really exciting having this team that, I think a lot of people can kind of start rooting for just because of how well they did last season and how well they're doing this year. But now what's unfortunate is I just feel like because of the nature of the sport and because it's outdoors and because we're in Florida and we're getting back into the
rainy season?
Well, the rainy season, but also just the extreme heat
Yeah.
that we experience here in South Florida. I think that just people aren't really going to turn out as much as they would.
Especially
if
on
we
like
had,
noon, like 12 p.m. Oh, my
Yeah,
goodness.
no, I don't know. But I know that there might be some tailgates for softball and baseball this season. So I think that could kind of help bring fans out. But it's just, their
Softball's also not
stands
as-
aren't going to be as packed.
Are the stands usually packed?
So for a couple of the softball games I covered, it looked pretty packed, and for some of the baseball games I covered too, at least the first like couple of games where they like started later in the day, they were also fairly packed as well.
Okay, because I was wondering like maybe because softball and baseball probably aren't as popular as like football, basketball. It doesn't get as many people.
I mean, also like you have like road teams where like their fans also travel pretty well. Like
Gotcha.
I was covering like the Bradley series this past weekend for baseball, and the first like 2 games, Bradley traveled very well. I got to chat actually with the uncle for one of the players for Bradley too.
Yeah.
So so seeing like all these Bradley fans coming in, like they were traveling fairly well.
Yeah, when I had watched the softball team play North Carolina State, and the woman sitting in front of me was one of the moms for one of the North Carolina players. And it was really funny because as her daughter like got onto first base and she was cheering, and then she started saying like, "Oh, I'm so happy she made it. Normally she doesn't. She's pretty slow." And and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, wow, that is so mean.
Parents are brutally honest.
Like,
I mean, parents of athletes
I
are like
thought,
very like.
I didn't know that it was her mom. I thought it was just like someone saying that.
Yeah.
And then she turned around to just like say something. And she was like, that was really rude. I'm her mom. That's why I'm saying that. I know that she's not that fast. And it was a really funny moment. Because yeah, like parents are brutal.
Yeah.
Like, did your guys' parents go to your games when you played sports?
I really wasn't that athletic as a kid. I just like did like basic stuff like kid like soccer or like a couple basketball camps. My parents like go to those games, of course, but like not really.
Morgan, did you
unfortunately.
play anything?
Yeah, I was actually laughing to myself because I have a story. I was playing basketball 8th grade, and I rolled my ankle actually. Right, I rolled my ankle, and I'm on my way to the bench, like limping a little bit. And I turn to my father, and I just see him, like he has glasses on inside. I don't know, hat, glasses, scruffy beard, and he's just going, shaking his head. I'm like, oh damn, all right.
Yeah.
Like I've seen like videos of like crazy parents, like especially like for wrestling. Like I saw one mom got mad her son lost and broke her glasses. I saw another one like in high school where these like kids were like wrestling this wrestling match, and the mom her son was like losing, so she like kind of like hit the kid because they were like right in front of her, and the parents like started getting mad because they're like, you're interfering with this match, because parents sometimes get so competitive they put that through to their kids too.
No, parents get extremely competitive. It's almost like they either like used to play the sport or they're just so into supporting their child that they like get so aggressive. Like I know when I would be reffing, because for volleyball the thing was for tournaments, like when you were on your break you would have to ref the other team. And we would be like standing there being the line judge, and parents would start yelling at us, and like up refs would have to get involved sometimes and yell at the parents. And shout out to my poor grandma. She was supporting one of my tournaments and she got a ball straight to her face and it broke her brand new glasses.
Oh, they're gonna say like it broke her like nose or jaw.
No,
like, okay, that's...
no, but she had just spent like a good amount of money on some prescription glasses, and it was her first time
Did
wearing
she get
them.
refunded or?
Well, no. I mean, she wasn't gonna go up to the girl that hit the ball and was like, "Give me like my money for these glasses."
No, but as in like saying like my glasses broke because of this. Like I know sometimes like glasses.
Oh
like,
no,
glasses would be
she
like,
didn't
yeah,
get
like
the,
100
I don't think
days.
she got like the insurance on them. Yeah, but I remember for me, like my mom always went to all my games, which I really appreciated. My dad went like when he could, but for him, he was always just so mad whenever I missed a serve. Like he would be like, "This is the basic thing that she learns, and this is how you have to start off the game, and you're missing it." I'm like, yeah, I don't know what to say, but parents definitely can get a little bit intense. And then so FEU baseball is also going to be playing this week, but they're playing on Wednesday, so a little bit earlier.
Tuesday.
On Tuesday?
Yeah.
Did I write the wrong day?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I wrote the wrong day in the show sheet. I don't know my dates, but they're actually going to be playing on Tuesday. And they've won their last 4 games as well, so they still haven't gotten into conference play, but they're going to be playing Miami this Tuesday.
Actually, FAU won their last 7.
What?
They won their last 7 games.
No, but I meant like since I don't know what I said. Okay. Maddox is just calling me out. I guess I wasn't in the right mentality when I was writing this morning. But Miami holds a 73-23 record over FAU in their history against them. But FAU did play Miami earlier this season on February 18th, and they won 2-1. So we'll kind of have to see. Do you guys think that they're going to come away with their second win? Or are they going to fall to their clear trend?
I think possibly they could get another victory, especially seeing how FAU has played this past series against Bradley. John Schroeder, the designated hitter for FAU, he on Saturday in their 14-4 victory over Bradley, he had 5 RBIs, 3 hits, 2 runs, including 1 3-run home run that he had over the right center field. He was a big playmaker. You got guys like Marshall Lipsy, who gets one of the top in the country in on-base percentage. Jake Dewar, one of the best in the nation in batting average. So you got players like that who are like huge playmakers. Kyle Boylston had a great game as well, especially because when I was calling that game, far off to my left were the football players, and they were chanting KB, KB the entire time Boylston got on base, or was that bad day, or always chanting. So great support from the football players as well. And for those who don't know, Kyle Boylston, the true freshman for the baseball team, is also a dual athlete playing for the football team as well as safety. And so him starting off as left field, center field, he also had a pretty good game, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 RBI, 1 walk. So FAU's looking good scoring-wise, offensively. Defensively, they have good pitchers. Marshall Lipsy and Patrick Ward are great at both the center field and shortstop, respectively. Guys like Trey Beard and James Libman, the true freshman from West Boca, who I think has now about 20 or more strikeouts, and he has played, I think, the past 3 or 4 games total this season, has a winning record. So also having a true freshman at pitcher as well is really impressive to see how well he's playing as of now. So I haven't really done much scouting again for Miami. I still have to because I'm calling that game tomorrow as well for radio. But their first game, they won 2-1. The last 2 runs were late in the game. And so I think looking at how Miami's record right now, 12-9, they got swept by Wake Forest on the road. Wake Forest, I believe, number 14 in the nation right now in the NCAA standings or NCAA rankings. So maybe Miami might learn from their mistakes from the last game and try and improve on that. But I think just seeing how FAU is 17-3 right now on a 7-game hot streak, and Miami has lost the last 3 games, got swept. It'll be interesting to see how Miami answers from an exact month to the day, because they played February 18th, and then tomorrow, March 18th, they're playing them. So exactly a month ago, seeing what they learned from that game and bringing that into effect for tomorrow night.
Yeah. It also does seem like that Miami struggles a little bit with their away games. So they're 1-7 right now for the season in away games.
Wow.
And yeah, they're on the 4-game losing streak. So they're definitely going to have some vengeance because FAU beat them earlier this season, but also you don't want to keep losing as an athlete. Mm-hmm. So they're going to come into this game hot for sure. But I think that FAU, their home field advantage really is going to play a huge factor in this game.
Yeah, especially since for yesterday's game, FAU in the bottom of the first inning scored 8 unanswered runs. So them already playing great offense. The last 2 games they have scored double digits.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no. It's everything on paper is pointing towards a FAU win. Miami's not good on the road. We're great at home, and we have momentum right now. So in theory, we should win tomorrow.
Keyword, in theory.
In theory.
Yeah.
With sports, you never really know. Not really. It kind of in the NFL and certain teams, I think it's more predictable. But with college sports especially, I think it is just especially unpredictable, especially when it comes to basketball. That's why this March Madness tournament is going to be so entertaining. Because there's a lot of things. I mean, I know we got off our basketball segment, but it was interesting to see that Michigan was placed at number 5 in the tournament when they won out their Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, and they defeated Wisconsin, who's right now 3.
Who's placed higher. So
Yeah.
sometimes
And
I feel
their record's not like that different.
yeah, I don't know.
There's a lot of different like metrics as well as like how well you play against quad 1, quad 2 wins, which like the top like 50 and the top like 100 teams, like how well you play against them, how good your non-conference is, which is why non-conference games are so crucial, how well how well you played in your conference games, how strong is your strength of schedule, like all of that is also really important to look at the metrics of it, which is also what a lot of people were surprised by for why North Carolina got in as well versus like West Virginia that had 6 quad 1 wins, while North Carolina only have 1. So.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to see how everything's calculated. I mean, not just for that, but even for instances such as like the baseball and softball teams. Like once they get into their conference tournament, all of these games and their records and how large of a point differential the games were, that all determines their standings. So it's a lot of calculating, and it's done by like the people that work for a conference, right? They probably throw stuff into computers.
I believe
now.
so, yeah, because they have like the Ken Palm, which is like very popular. That they have a NEV ranking, which also like determines like just how well overall your schedule and non-conference and everything is, how well you play in quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, quad 4. And then like other ones like WOB I just learned about, which is like wins over the bubble or something. So against like teams like in the bubble or in the field to March Madness, how well you play against those teams, like how strong you look.
Wait, you said it's called what?
The WOB wins over the bubble or something. Yeah, it's like there's like about like 7 or 8 different metrics to like look at for the committee to see before they make their official bracket.
But the most important one is just the overall record.
Yeah, overall record, and I think also just like, I think there are a couple. It's like overall record, then how strong your like overall schedule is, and then how well you played against top teams. Like for FAU, I think they played like against 4 quad 1 teams, and they went over 4, and had a couple wins in quad 2, a lot more games in quad 3, a lot of games in quad winless, and I think they went undefeated in like quad 4. Quad 4 is like a lot like those lower teams. So that's not really impressive versus how well you play against the quad 1 and quad 2 teams, because a lot of those quad 1 and quad 2s are in this tournament right here.
No, they are. But exciting week for. Now we might be saying that the men's basketball season's officially over, depending on how this Wednesday goes.
Yeah.
But we'll be able to still continue up with baseball and softball. So with that, I think it's about time to wrap things up. So where can they find you guys?
They can find me on Instagram at MaddoxBlade04 and on Twitter at Maddox Greenberg.
And you can find me on Instagram at Megan_Bruinsma and Twitter Megan Bruinsma.
You can find me on the same 2 platforms, MJ_Larkins.
Okay. See you all next week. Peace.